Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the EOB Podcast. So last weekend we have, of course, the release of the sequel, The Incredibles 2, the sequel to Brad Bird's 2004 animated superhero movie. And then we have the comedy Tag starring Jeremy Renner and a couple other comedians. I'm not sure if Jeremy Renner is a comedian, but hey, in this one he plays one. It's an R-rated comedy released by Warner Brothers. And then there is the, I guess, the hip-hop action-y thriller, Superfly, about the rags to riches, a guy, from the criminal underworld, starting from the bottom, starting dealing drugs and gun running, etc. And then he has to deal with some people in Mexico or something like that. We'll see. All right, let's jump right in. So how about we start off with the number one movie over the weekend, which is unsurprisingly The Incredibles 2. Brad Bird returns to direct. Remember, he did I think American Tail. Very well regarded animated movie, and a couple others, by the way. And then he kind of fell off the map. For example, those movies didn't really perform well, and then he rejuvenated his career at Pixar. Iron Giant was one, I believe. And now, with the release of The Incredibles 2, let's see, the first movie opened to... let's see where it opened to. Yeah, it opened to 70 million. That was back in 2004. It went on to gross 261 domestic and 633 million worldwide. Let's see, 2004 is about 14 years later, right? Between movies. And how will that go over? The people who grew up with this movie has already grown up, right? So how will this movie perform? And I conservatively estimated that this movie could pull in between 80 to 90 million opening for its opening weekend, and that's typically in line with what the Pixar movies open to, unless they're unless it's one of their like super franchises like the Finding Nemo's, Finding Dory's, or Toy Story. And for The Incredibles, we only have one movie to go by, right? And then there is like Monster University, which kind of performed a bit better than the previous movie, I believe. But this Incredibles, like with so many years between movies, it might get a bump from the previous movie's opening, but it might not be that big of a bump. But and also kind of qualify that by saying I wouldn't be surprised if it grows more. But conservatively, I say it'll probably open to between 80 to 90 million. But hey, it blew my estimate out of the water. It pulled in 182 million over the weekend. Huge opening, right? And I believe, according to boxofficemojo, right, this is like the highest opening for an animated movie ever. So remember I said that people still expect quality from Pixar movies, and Brad Bird in the animation circles, he has a very good reputation. So it's not surprising that The Incredibles 2 did well. I mean, it has an A+ cinema score. That means the audience that got polled after they watched the movie really liked it. It's the A+, really, right? And then 95% on the tomato meter, so well liked by the critics and well liked by the audience. So it's a huge success, another huge movie, potential franchise. It is a franchise, and a huge franchise for Pixar, one that they can come back to mine again and again, since we are in the era of superhero movies, right? When the first movie was released back in 2004, I believe like superhero movies weren't that widespread. I mean, we only have a couple every year or so, right? But now it's like every couple months there's a superhero movie, because what Marvel is doing with their cinematic universe, they're introducing new characters. It was kind of like an odd duck then, right? An animated superhero movie, right? But then, hey, right now superhero movie is so widespread that it's just like, oh, okay, another superhero movie, except this one's animated. So 182 million, and supposedly if it holds, if the momentum holds, it could probably gross over 500 million domestically. If it holds. All right. Let's move on to number 2, which is Ocean's 8. A movie that I didn't have a high expectation of, but it surprised me. It opened to about 41 million, and I said the movie could probably open to 15 to 20 million, a tad off there. But hey, this movie is not made for me. But I did say that this movie is made for the female audience and an underserved group, which I said studios are beginning to mine. And this movie is made for them, and surprisingly, the hold for the second weekend is better than I expected. I expected to the high 50s, but the drop off is only about 55% or so. 18.9 million in its second weekend, for domestic total of about 78 million so far, right? And the budget is only 70 million, so it already crossed its production budget, right? And worldwide, it hasn't opened that wide yet. It grows about 36.8 million overseas for a total of 115 million. This movie, I thought it was gimmick casting, and I thought the formula is kind of old and tired because we have a couple, like 3 previous Ocean 11 movies already, and I thought this one might not work as well because hey, that Ghostbuster movie, remember that reboot, it didn't do so well, but this one kind of did. And maybe this one is not targeted toward the fanboys. This one's toward the female audience. I think they're more forgiving than the guys, so that's why I think this one did so well. And remember, I said, movies made for women and underserved group, which studios are beginning to recognize and make movies for. It's doing well, and it's paying off. So that's why Ocean's 11 is has a huge opening and holding on well despite The Incredibles 2 in theaters. I remember when I said a movie opening that huge would suck the oxygen from all the rest of the movies, but this one is kind of like counter programming for the movies like The Incredibles, because it target that specific demographic that are not into like movies, superhero movies or animation, like The Incredibles 2. So like good counter programming there from Warner Brothers against the onslaught of these big budget tentpoles. So I was wrong on the appeal of Ocean's 8, and hey, we can expect to see Ocean's 9 and Ocean's 10, since I believe if this one does well, they will make more movies. And hey, they left 9 and 10 for the female version of this movie, of this concept. All right, let's move on to number 3, which is Tag, one of the new releases last weekend. The R-rated comedy. It pulled in about 14.9 million over the weekend. Let's see, what did I have for Tag? I said it could open to between 10 to 15 million, and it opened about right there, 14.9 million. It was right there on the upper end of my range. And review wise, it's okay, like 57% on the tomato meter and a B+ score. So critics, for reviews for a movie like this is actually pretty good. Not great, right, but good, considering, right? It's a movie about a group of adults, friends, who take I think a month out of the year to play this game of tag, and whenever they they will play this game. If you watch the trailer, right, they play the tag during childbirth, weddings, etc. And Jeremy Renner is this guy who is like the ace in this group, and everyone's trying to tag him. Ed Helms is in this one as well, and Isla Fisher, John Hamm. So we'll see how this movie holds up. And we also have Jurassic World coming up, opening this weekend. That's gonna suck up more oxygen from the rest of the movies that is not The Incredibles 2, right? We're gonna see The Incredibles 2 affected. We're gonna see Ocean's 8 affected, Tag especially, right? Since it's one of the movies that it's not a must-watch. So the 2 biggest movie in theaters are going to be Incredibles 2 and Jurassic World, and we'll see what the collateral damage is going to be come next week, come next Monday. So that is Tag, a movie that, hey, it's actually, opened well, and the budget's only 28 million. So let's see how it does, but I expect the dropouts to be huge for the second weekend because of the competition in theaters, right? And it's not blockbuster proof like Ocean's 8. Remember, they target different demographic, and the demographic of TAG is probably the demographic for like Incredibles and Jurassic World. All right, let's move on to number 4, which is Solo, a Star Wars story. It pulled in about 10 million in its fourth weekend. Domestic gross right now is 193 million, and worldwide is at 340 million. And yeah, and it looks like it's gonna be the lowest Star Wars, one of the lowest. Remember, if we go by gross. Domestically, if we go by domestic gross, it's going to beat out the Empire Strike Back for the ninth spot in the the list, which is still pretty bad, considering that inflation, if you take inflation into account, it's one of the worst grossing movies, just ahead of Attack of the Clones. All right. Let's move on to number 5, which is Deadpool 2. It pulled in about 8.7 million in its fifth weekend. Domestic gross is 294 million, and worldwide is at 689 million. And it looks like it won't beat out the first movie, but still, like I said before, Fox is really happy with Deadpool 2. Because hey, it proves that all-rated superhero movies could work, and the sequel, while did not surpass the first movie, it performs kind of similar, if a bit lower, right? So we can look forward to more Deadpools, and of course, this is a jumping-off point to the X-Force movies as well. All right. Let's move on to number 6, which is another new release. It was released on Wednesday. The actioner thriller Superfly. It pulled in, domestic gross right now is about 9 million. It only pulled in about 6.7 million over the weekend. I expect this movie to open better because, like I said, it targets the African American audience, right? But apparently that audience didn't really turn out for this movie. I thought the movie could open to 20 to 25 million, but it only opened to 6.9 million 3 days. 5 days is 9 million. But the budget is low. It's only 16 million, and if it holds, it could probably make back its production budget, right? But hey, like I said, it can only drop off from there because competition from The Incredibles 2 and Jurassic World is coming up, and the interest level, judging by the opening, is not that high. All right. Number 7 is the horror movie Hereditary, starring Toni Collette. I put in about 6.9 million over the weekend. In the second weekend, drop off is kind of low, about 50% from its previous weekend. Domestic gross is 27 right now. This is a movie that kind of have a disconnect between the general audience and critics. Critics love this movie, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the cinema score is a D+. So there is that. I guess the audience were expecting one thing and got dissatisfied with what they saw. All right, number 8 is Avengers: Infinity War. It pulled in 5.4 million over the weekend. In its 8th weekend already, drop off is kind of low, about 25%. Domestic gross is 664 million, and worldwide is at 2 billion already. Avengers: Infinity War is already on the record books as the highest, that has the highest opening, and has a good chance to beat out Star Wars: The Force Awakens, for number 4. So we'll see if they can, if this movie can beat it. All right, let's go to number 9, movie Adrift. It pulled in about 2.2 million over the weekend. The domestic gross is 26 million. And all right, let's close out the top 10 with Book Club. It pulled in about 1.8 million over the weekend. Drop off is about 57%. Domestic gross is about 62 million. All right, that rounds out the top 10. Let's move on to the new releases. So we have Jurassic World 2 coming along. It's going to be open in over 4,000 theaters. That means the theaters gonna the screens are gonna be coming from somewhere, right? So some of the lower performing ones. are gonna have their screens taken and replaced by either Incredibles 2 or Jurassic World or a couple others. That theaters are gonna make the adjustments based on their own judgment or contracting with the studios, right? So we'll see what the damage is. Like I said, where the collateral damage is, what movies will suffer from another huge movie coming in theaters. So let's talk about Jurassic World 2. It is the sequel to Jurassic World with Chris Pratt, right, and Bryce Howard. The first movie opened to 208 million. At that time was the highest opening ever until Star Wars The Force Awakens came along, and then Marvel's Infinity War. And then it pulled in 652 million domestic and 1.7 billion worldwide. Stan and I talked about this movie when it opened, and we said that it was a movie that was at the right place at the right time. The world was somehow ready for another dinosaur movie, another Jurassic Park or Jurassic World movie. So that's why it opened as well as it did. But for the sequel, I don't think it's going to be as big as the first movie. Domestically, I'm talking about domestic here. So I don't think it's going to open to 208 million. Right, we have more dinosaurs in Jurassic World, and they're gonna further the story more along, with global, climate change, etc. I think the island that they're on is blowing up. If you watch the trailer, right, and they need to rescue these dinosaurs off that island. And of course, if there is a Jurassic World 3, we're gonna see, dinosaurs either on another island or coming to civilization where there are people. So with that said, like I said, I have a feeling that Jurassic World 2 is not going to be as anticipated as the first movie, because I thought the first movie, as I said, was a movie that's at the right place, right time. The world was ready for another dinosaur movie, and Jurassic World came along and hit the spot. Since people's appetite for Jurassic World was satisfied by the first movie, I don't think Jurassic World 2 is gonna open as high. So I think it's gonna probably have an opening in the maybe 150 million range or so, maybe, because people still like the first movie, right? But I don't think there's gonna be that fervor there for the sequel. So I expect the movie to open around 150 million, if not lower. So I'm gonna go with 150 million. All right, so that is it for this podcast. Tune in next time to see how I did with Jurassic World 2. Until then, take care. Bye bye.